Are you wearing a hearing aid right now, but still struggling to understand conversations? Maybe you've noticed it whistling in your ear, or the sound feels tinny and unnatural. Here's what most doctors won't tell you. Up to 40% of seniors who own hearing aids barely use them. And it's not because the devices don't work, it's because of 5 preventable mistakes happening every single day. I'm speaking to you today, not just as a healthcare professional, but as someone who's seen the devastating ripple effects of untreated hearing loss. We're not just talking about missing a few words at dinner. Medical research now links hearing loss to dementia, cognitive decline, and even increased risk of falls and hospitalization. Your brain literally starts to shrink when it stops processing sound properly. This isn't vanity. This is survival. But here's the good news. Most of these mistakes are shockingly simple to fix. And in the next few minutes, I'm going to walk you through exactly what's going wrong, and more importantly, how to correct it starting today. By the end of this video, you'll understand why your hearing aid might be sitting in a drawer instead of in your ear, and what you can do to change that. Stay with me until the end, because I'll reveal a hidden mistake about hearing tests that most seniors make before they even buy the device, and it's quietly sabotaging everything. Let's begin. Let me start with the most common mistake I see, and honestly, it's the one that breaks my heart the most because it's so easily fixable. Mistake number 1. You're not wearing your hearing aid enough hours per day. And I'm not talking about forgetting it occasionally. I'm talking about the pattern I see over and over again in my practice. You put it on for church on Sunday morning. Maybe you wear it when the grandkids visit. Perhaps you slip it in when you're going to a doctor's appointment because you don't want to miss what they're saying. But the rest of the time, it's sitting on your nightstand, or in a drawer, or in that little case it came in, gathering dust. Now before you feel guilty, I want you to know I understand why this happens. The hearing aid feels uncomfortable. Sounds are too loud, too sharp. Your own voice sounds strange, like you're talking in a tunnel. Background noise is overwhelming. So you think, I'll just wear it when I really need it. And that seems reasonable, right? Save it for the important moments. But here's what you need to understand. That approach is exactly what's preventing your hearing aid from ever working properly. And more importantly, it's silently damaging your brain in ways you can't see or feel until it's too late. Let me explain what's happening inside your head right now. When you lose hearing, whether it's graduated, hearing loss, or damage from years of noise exposure, the auditory cortex, which is the part of your brain responsible for processing sound, starts to weaken. Think of it like a muscle you're not using. If you broke your leg and spent 6 months in a cast, that leg muscle would atrophy, right? It would shrink, get weaker. The same thing happens to your auditory cortex when it stops receiving sound signals. Medical studies have shown something remarkable. Your brain needs at least 8 hours of consistent sound input every single day to relearn how to process noise, speech, and environmental sounds. This process is called auditory acclimatization, or sometimes audiologists call it the adaptation period. Without this consistent stimulation, your brain stays out of shape. It never builds back the neural pathways it needs to make sense of sound. And that means your hearing aid will always feel uncomfortable. It will always feel overwhelming. You'll never get past that initial discomfort phase. But here's what really concerns me as a healthcare professional. Research now shows us that untreated hearing loss, and yes, owning a hearing aid but not wearing it counts as untreated, is directly linked to accelerated cognitive decline, increased risk of dementia, and even higher rates of depression and social isolation. Your brain doesn't just process sound for the sake of hearing. It uses those sound signals to stay active, to stay engaged, to maintain neural connections across multiple brain regions. When you cut off that input, you're not just missing conversations. You're slowly shutting down parts of your brain. Let me give you an analogy that makes this crystal clear. Imagine you've been sitting in a completely dark room for 6 months. No windows, no lights, nothing. Your eyes have adjusted to total darkness. Now, someone suddenly opens the door and turns on a bright overhead light. What happens? Your eyes hurt, right? You squint. You might even feel a headache coming on. Everything is too bright, too harsh. You want to shut your eyes or run back into the dark room where it felt comfortable. That's exactly what's happening to your ears and your brain when you first start wearing a hearing aid. When you first put that device in, everything sounds too loud, too sharp, too strange. The refrigerator hums. Your footsteps echo. Paper rustling sounds like crashing cymbals. Your own voice sounds alien to you. And your first instinct is to take the hearing aid out and go back to the comfortable quiet you've gotten used to. But here's the thing, that comfortable quiet isn't comfortable for your brain. It's starvation. Your brain has been operating in a state of sensory deprivation, and now you're giving it the nutrition it desperately needs. But just like someone who's been starving can't immediately eat a 5-course meal without getting sick, your brain can't immediately process a full day of sound without feeling overwhelmed. Audiologists call this the adaptation period. And here's the critical part. If you only wear your hearing aid a few hours a week, you never get through that adaptation period. You stay stuck in discomfort. You stay stuck in that phase where everything sounds wrong. It's like going to the gym once a week and wondering why you're not getting stronger. Your brain needs consistent, daily training to rebuild those neural pathways. Research shows that most people need about 4 to 6 weeks of consistent daily use before their brain fully adapts. During week 1, everything sounds strange. Week 2, it's still uncomfortable but slightly better. Week 3, you start noticing moments where things sound normal. And by week 4 or 5, something amazing happens. Your brain clicks into place. The strange sounds become normal. Background noise fades into the background where it belongs. Conversations become clearer. Your own voice sounds like you again. But 40% of hearing aid users quit before they reach this breakthrough point. They give up during week 2 when everything still feels wrong. And their hearing aid ends up in the drawer permanently. So here's what I want you to do, starting today. If you're new to hearing aids, start small but stay consistent. Wear your hearing aid for 2 to 3 hours on the first day. Choose a time when you're at home, in a quiet environment. Maybe while you're reading or doing light housework. Don't start in a noisy restaurant or at a family gathering. Give your brain a gentle introduction. The next day, add another hour. Day 3, add another hour. Your goal is to reach 8 to 10 hours of daily wear within 2 weeks. And I mean every single day, not just the important days. Weekends count. Quiet days at home count. Even if you're alone all day, your brain still needs to hear the hum of the refrigerator, the sound of your own footsteps, the birds outside, the TV in the background. All of that is exercise for your auditory cortex. Keep a simple journal if it helps. Write down how many hours you wore it each day and how it felt. You'll be amazed at how much improvement you see week by week. The sounds that feel weird and overwhelming now will become normal. I promise you that. But only if you commit to the process. And if you've had your hearing aid for months or years, but you've been wearing it sporadically, it's not too late. Start the process over. Treat it like you're training your brain from scratch, because in many ways, you are. Give yourself that 4 to 6 week window of consistent daily use before you judge whether the device is working. Now here's the thing. Wearing your hearing aid longer only works if you're managing mistake number 2. And this one involves something that's blocking your hearing aid's performance every single day. Most people have no idea this is even happening. But once you understand it, you'll realize why your hearing aid sometimes sounds muffled or stops working entirely. Let me show you what I mean. Alright, Mistake number 2 might surprise you because it's not about how you wear your hearing aid. It's about how you care for it. And from what I see in my practice, most people are barely doing any maintenance at all. Here it is. You're not cleaning your hearing aid properly, or frankly, you're not cleaning it at all. Now I'm not talking about a quick wipe with your shirt when you take it out at night. I'm not talking about blowing on it or running it under water for a second. I'm talking about daily, thorough, methodical cleaning that removes earwax, debris, and moisture from every tiny opening and surface of that device. And I know what you're thinking. Doc, I paid $2,000 for this thing. Shouldn't it be able to handle a little earwax? Well, here's the hard truth. Research from doctor's ear, nose, and throat specialists shows that earwax and moisture are the 2 leading causes of hearing aid malfunction and failure. Not battery issues. Not electronic defects. Earwax and moisture. That high-pitched whistling sound you hate. That feedback squeal that makes you want to rip the device out of your ear. That muffled, tinny audio quality that makes voices sound like they're underwater. 9 times out of 10, it's not the device that's broken. It's clogged. And the tragic part is, most people don't realize this. They think their hearing aid has stopped working, so they stop wearing it. They put it in a drawer and tell themselves, well, I tried. It just doesn't work for me. Meanwhile, all they needed was a 5-minute cleaning routine. Let me explain what happens inside those tiny components when earwax and moisture start to build up. Your hearing aid has microscopic openings. We're talking smaller than the tip of a pen for the microphone and the receiver. The microphone picks up sound from the environment. The receiver, also called the speaker, delivers that processed sound into your ear canal. Both of these components have ports, little holes that allow sound waves to pass through. When earwax builds up inside these openings, it acts like a plug. Sound can get in, and sound can't get out. The device has to work harder and harder to push sound through that blockage, which drains your battery faster. You'll notice you're changing batteries every 3 days instead of every week. But worse than that, the electronics inside the hearing aid start to strain. It's like forcing your car engine to run with a clogged air filter. Eventually, something's going to break. Now let's talk about moisture. Your ear canal is a warm, humid environment. Add to that any sweat from physical activity or just a hot day, and you've got moisture seeping into your hearing aid constantly. Modern hearing aids have some moisture resistance, yes, but they're not waterproof. Over time, moisture from sweat or humidity corrodes the internal electronics. Tiny circuits start to rust. Solder connections weaken. And eventually, the device stops working altogether. Here's where this gets serious. When your hearing aid stops functioning properly, whether from wax buildup or moisture damage, you stop wearing it. And we already talked about what happens when you stop wearing it. Your brain stops getting the auditory stimulation it needs. That damaged device sitting unused in your drawer means you're losing precious weeks and months of brain stimulation. Cognitive decline accelerates. Your risk for dementia increases. Social isolation creeps in because you can't follow conversations anymore, so you stop going to social events. You stop calling friends. You retreat inward. And here's the kicker. This entire cascade of negative health outcomes could have been prevented with a simple, nightly cleaning routine that takes less time than brushing your teeth. Let me break down the biology here so you understand why this is such a persistent problem. Your ear canal produces earwax. The medical term is cerumen as a natural defense mechanism. It's your body's way of protecting the delicate inner ear from dust, bacteria, and foreign particles. Earwax is actually antibacterial and slightly acidic. It traps debris and slowly migrates outward, carrying that debris out of your ear canal naturally. But here's the problem. Hearing aids sit right at the opening of your ear canal, directly in the path of that outward-moving earwax. They collect wax like a sponge. Every hour you wear your hearing aid, a little more wax accumulates on the receiver tip, around the microphone ports, and along the edges of the device. Think of it like a vacuum cleaner filter. When you first buy a vacuum, it has incredible suction, right? But if you never clean or replace that filter, dust and debris build up. The airflow gets blocked, and eventually, the vacuum barely picks up anything. The motor might even burn out from working too hard. The exact same principle applies to your hearing aid. The microphone and receiver ports are microscopic. We're talking 0.5 to 1 millimeter in diameter. Even a tiny amount of earwax buildup can block 50% to 70% of sound quality. And because the buildup happens gradually, you might not even notice it at first. You just think, sounds seem a bit quieter today. Then a week later, why is everyone mumbling? Then a month later, this thing doesn't work anymore. But it does work. It's just suffocating under a layer of wax and moisture. Now some people produce more earwax than others. It's genetic. If you're someone who's always had waxy ears, you're at even higher risk for this issue. And if you live in a humid climate, think Florida, Louisiana, coastal areas, or if you exercise regularly and sweat a lot, moisture damage becomes a serious concern. The combination of wax and moisture creates a sticky, corrosive film that's incredibly damaging to sensitive electronics. And specialists have found that up to 60% of hearing aid repairs could have been prevented with proper daily cleaning. 60%. That's not a device defect. That's a maintenance issue. So here's exactly what I want you to do, starting tonight. Make this part of your bedtime routine, right alongside brushing your teeth. Before you go to bed, take out your hearing aid and examine it under good light. Look at the receiver tip. That's the part that sits in your ear canal. Do you see any yellow or brown buildup? That's wax. Look at the microphone ports, usually two small holes on the body of the device. Are they clear, or do you see debris? Every single night, use a soft, dry cloth. Microfiber works great to wipe down the entire surface of the hearing aid. Get into the habit of doing this. Then, use the brush or pick tool that came with your hearing aid. Most devices come with a small cleaning kit that includes a tiny brush and a wire loop or pick. Use the brush to gently sweep away any visible wax from the receiver tip and around the microphone ports. Use the pick very gently to clear out the wax guard if your device has one. Here's what you absolutely must not do. Never use pins, toothpicks, paper clips, or any sharp metal objects to clean your hearing aid. I've seen people try this, thinking they're being resourceful. What they don't realize is they're puncturing the delicate mesh screens that protect the microphone and receiver. Once you puncture those screens, the device is permanently damaged. You're looking at a $500 to $1,500 repair. Not worth it. Also, never use water, alcohol, or cleaning solutions unless they're specifically designed for hearing aids. Water can seep into the electronics. Alcohol can damage the plastic casing and dry out seals. If you want to deep clean your device, use hearing aid cleaning wipes or sprays that are sold specifically for this purpose. Now here's the moisture solution. Invest in a hearing aid dehumidifier box. You can get one for $15 to $30 online or at any hearing aid supply store. Every night, after you clean your device, place it in the dehumidifier box. These boxes use either silica gel packets or electronic drying systems to pull moisture out of the device overnight. This simple habit can extend the lifespan of your hearing aid by years. And one more thing, replace your wax guards regularly. Most hearing aids have replaceable wax guards, little filters that catch earwax before it reaches the receiver. These should be changed every 1 to 2 months, depending on how much wax you produce. Your audiologist can show you how to do this, or there are plenty of tutorial videos online. It's a 30-second task that can prevent hundreds of dollars in repairs. Now daily cleaning is essential. It protects your investment and keeps your device functioning at peak performance. But here's the thing, even the cleanest, best maintained hearing aid in the world won't help you if you made mistake number 3 before you even bought the device. And unfortunately, this is a mistake I see all the time, especially with the rise of over-the-counter hearing aids. Most people don't realize they're setting themselves up for failure from day one. Let me explain what I mean. Here's where things get uncomfortable, because mistake number 3 is one most people don't even realize they're making, and honestly, it's the one that frustrates audiologists and doctors the most. Mistake number 3. You either skipped a professional hearing test entirely, or you weren't completely honest during the evaluation. Now I know how this happens. Maybe you saw an advertisement for over-the-counter hearing aids on TV. They're cheaper, right? No appointment necessary. Just order online, pop them in, and you're good to go. So you skipped the audiologist visit altogether and bought a device based on a guess about what you need. Or maybe you did go in for a hearing test, but during the evaluation, when the audiologist played those tones through the headphones and asked, "Can you hear this?" you guessed. You hit the button even when you weren't totally sure you heard the sound, because you were embarrassed. You didn't want to admit how bad your hearing really was. You didn't want to seem old or disabled. I understand that impulse. I really do. But here's what I need you to understand. Either way, you've set yourself up for complete failure. And not just minor frustration. I'm talking about wasting thousands of dollars on a device that will never work properly for you, no matter how much you adjust the volume or fiddle with the settings. Let me give you the brutal truth. And I don't say this to scare you, I say it because you need to know. If your hearing aid isn't programmed to match your specific type and degree of hearing loss, it's nothing more than expensive noise amplification. It's not helping you hear better. It's just making everything louder. And that's not the same thing. Here's what most people don't realize. Not all hearing loss is created equal. Hearing loss isn't like turning down the volume knob on a radio, where everything just gets quieter across the board. It's much more complex than that. You might struggle with high-frequency sounds like women's voices, children's voices, birds chirping, or the consonants in speech like S and TA. But at the same time, you might hear low-frequency sounds like a truck engine, a man's deep voice, or thunder just fine. In fact, those low sounds might already seem too loud to you. Now, if you buy a generic, over-the-counter hearing aid without a professional evaluation, that device is going to amplify everything equally. It doesn't know what frequencies you're missing. So what happens? The low-frequency sounds you can already hear become unbearably loud and distorted. You hear the rumble of the refrigerator, the hum of the air conditioner, the bass notes in music all amplified to an uncomfortable level. But the high-frequency sounds you're actually struggling with, the ones you need help with, are still inaudible because they're getting drowned out by all that low-frequency noise. Result? The hearing aid feels useless. Worse than useless, it's annoying. So you stop wearing it. You tell yourself it doesn't work, and you go back to struggling without it. And meanwhile, your brain continues to deteriorate from lack of auditory stimulation. You're losing cognitive function. Your risk of dementia is climbing. Your balance and spatial awareness are declining because your brain isn't getting the sound cues it needs. All because you tried to take a shortcut around a professional evaluation. And if you did get a hearing test but you weren't honest during it, the outcome is almost as bad. Because now your hearing aid is programmed based on false data. The audiologist thinks you can hear frequencies you actually can't. So the device isn't boosting those frequencies enough. You're still missing words in conversation. You're still asking people to repeat themselves. And you're thinking, what's the point of this expensive device if I still can't hear? Let me explain this in a way that makes the science crystal clear. Think of hearing loss like vision problems. You wouldn't walk into a store and buy reading glasses off the shelf without knowing whether you're nearsighted or farsighted, would you? You wouldn't guess at your prescription. You'd go to an optometrist, get a proper eye exam, and get glasses that are precisely calibrated to your specific vision problem. Same principle applies to hearing aids. When you go to a licensed audiologist, they perform what's called an audiogram. This is a comprehensive hearing test that measures your ability to hear sounds across a wide range of frequencies, typically from 125 Hz, all the way up to 8,000 Hz. To put that in perspective, a man's deep voice is around 85 to 180 Hz, a woman's voice is around 165 to 255 Hz, the consonants in speech, the sounds that carry meaning and help you distinguish between words like cat and bat, live in the higher frequencies, around 2,000 to 8,000 Hz. The audiologist plays tones at each of these frequencies through headphones and asks you to signal when you hear them. They test each ear separately, and they test at different volumes to determine not just which frequencies you can't hear, but how much amplification you need at each frequency to bring your hearing back to normal levels. This creates a detailed map of your specific hearing loss pattern. And here's the critical part. They use that map to program your hearing aid. Modern digital hearing aids can be programmed with incredible precision. They can boost high frequencies without touching low frequencies. They can amplify soft sounds while leaving loud sounds alone. They can adjust for background noise, for music versus speech, for different listening environments. But only if they're programmed correctly. Only if the audiologist has accurate data about your actual hearing loss. If you skip this step, if you buy an over-the-counter device that's just set to a generic amplification profile, the device is essentially guessing. It's like wearing someone else's prescription glasses. Sure, they might help a little bit. Or they might make things worse. Or they might work fine for a week and then give you headaches. You have no idea, because they weren't made for your specific needs. And here's the statistic that should concern you. Studies show that improperly fitted hearing aids are the #1 reason for device abandonment within the first 6 months. Not discomfort. Not cost. Not vanity. Improper fitting. People give up because the device doesn't work the way they expected it to. And they don't realize the problem isn't the device, it's the programming. Let me also address the people who weren't honest during the test. I see this more often than you'd think. Someone comes in for a hearing evaluation, and during the test, they press the button when they think they might have heard a sound, even if they're not sure. They don't want to admit they can't hear it. Or they feel pressure to perform well, like it's a school exam they can pass or fail. Or they're in denial about how severe their hearing loss really is. But here's what happens. The audiologist programs the device based on that inaccurate data. And now your hearing aid is under-amplifying the frequencies you actually need help with. You leave the office thinking you got a proper fitting, but the device isn't giving you the boost you need. And 6 weeks later, you're frustrated because you're still struggling in noisy restaurants, or missing half of what your spouse says. You think the hearing aid is defective, but really, it was just programmed based on bad information. So here's what I want you to do, and if you've already made this mistake, it's not too late to fix it. Get a proper audiogram from a licensed audiologist. Not from a retail store employee. Not from a mail order website. From a certified audiologist who has the training and equipment to perform a comprehensive hearing evaluation. And when you're in that booth with the headphones on, be brutally honest. If you don't hear the tone, don't press the button. There's no shame in hearing loss. The audiologist isn't judging you. They're not grading you. They're gathering data so they can help you. The more accurate your responses, the better your hearing aid will work. Once you get your hearing aid fitted, here's the next critical step. Schedule a follow-up appointment within 30 days. This is not optional. Your first fitting is based on the audiogram and the audiologist's best judgment about what settings will work for you. But everyone's ears and brains respond differently to amplification. After you've worn the device for a few weeks, you'll have real-world feedback about what's working and what's not. Maybe certain sounds are too loud. Maybe you're still struggling to hear voices and noise. Maybe there's feedback or whistling in certain situations. Bring all of that information to your follow-up appointment. The audiologist will make adjustments, sometimes very small tweaks, sometimes significant changes to optimize the device for your real-world needs. This fine-tuning process is essential. It's the difference between a hearing aid that sits in a drawer and one that changes your life. And remember, your hearing changes over time. Age-related hearing loss is progressive. The audiogram you got 2 years ago might not reflect your hearing today. That's why annual hearing evaluations are so important. Your device programming should evolve along with your hearing loss. Now, once you've got that proper fitting and programming, you'd think you're all set, right? But here's the problem. Mistake number 4 is something that happens after the fitting, and it's silently destroying your device's lifespan and your wallet. Most people don't even realize it's a problem until they've wasted months or even years of potential benefit. And by then, they've missed opportunities for hearing improvement that they can never get back. Let me show you what I mean. Alright, we've covered a lot of ground, but here's mistake number 4, and honestly, this one frustrates me because it's such a missed opportunity. Mistake number 4. You got your hearing aid fitted, walked out of the audiologist's office, and then never went back. No follow-up appointments. No adjustments. No check-ins to see how things are going. You got the device you left, and that was that. Case closed. And let me guess, you also didn't read the instruction manual, did you? I'm not judging. Nobody reads the manual anymore. But here's the thing. You might not even know that your device has multiple programs built into it. One program for quiet, one-on-one conversations. Another program for noisy restaurants or crowded environments. A third program optimized for phone calls or watching TV. Some devices even have a music mode that's specifically tuned for enjoying concerts or listening to your favorite songs. But you've been using the same default setting for everything, like you're using a smartphone as if it's an old flip phone from 2005. Now, you might be thinking, Doc, I paid for this thing. It should just work, right? Why do I need follow-up appointments? And I get that frustration. But here's what you need to understand. Hearing aids are not a one-time purchase like a pair of shoes. They're medical devices that require ongoing care, adjustment, and optimization. And without that ongoing relationship with your audiologist, you're leaving massive benefits on the table. Let me explain why this matters so much for your long-term health. Hearing loss is progressive. It doesn't stay the same. It gets worse over time, especially age-related hearing loss, which is called presbycusis. If you don't schedule regular checkups, and I'm talking at least once a year, minimum, your hearing aid settings become outdated. They become obsolete. Think about this. Your hearing aid is still programmed for the hearing you had 2 years ago when you first got fitted. But your hearing today is different. It's declined. Maybe not dramatically, maybe just a few decibels here and there, a slight drop in certain frequencies. But those small changes add up. And now your device isn't giving you the amplification you need in the ranges where you've lost more hearing. You're straining to hear. You're working harder during every conversation. And you might not even consciously realize it, because the decline has been so gradual. But your brain realizes it. Your brain is exhausted from the effort. Audiologists call this listening fatigue. It's a real, measurable phenomenon. When your brain has to work overtime to fill in the gaps and make sense of incomplete auditory information, it drains your cognitive resources. You feel mentally exhausted after social gatherings. You avoid situations where you have to concentrate on listening. You start withdrawing from activities you used to enjoy, not because you don't want to participate, but because it's just too tiring. And here's what really concerns me. You're missing out on advanced features that could dramatically improve your quality of life. Modern hearing aids are technological marvels. They have directional microphones that can focus on the person in front of you while suppressing background noise. They have Bluetooth connectivity so you can stream phone calls and music directly into your ears with crystal clear quality. They have noise reduction algorithms that analyze your environment in real time and adjust automatically. Some devices even have artificial intelligence that learns your preferences and adapts over time. But if you don't know these features exist, you're not using them. And if you don't have regular follow-ups to learn how to use them, you're essentially driving a luxury car and only using first gear. Research backs this up. Studies show that users who attend regular follow-up appointments have 60% higher satisfaction rates with their hearing aids. They wear their devices twice as long. They report better hearing outcomes. They're happier. All because they stayed engaged with the process. Let me break down the biology of why ongoing adjustments are so critical. Your auditory system is dynamic. It's not static. Age-related hearing loss presbycusis doesn't happen overnight. It's a gradual process caused by the deterioration of tiny hair cells in your inner ear called stereocilia. These hair cells convert sound vibrations into electrical signals that your brain can understand. But as you age, these hair cells get damaged and die. And once they're gone, they don't regenerate. Here's the thing, this damage happens unevenly. You might lose a cluster of hair cells that respond to 4,000 Hz sounds this year. Next year, you might lose hair cells that respond to 6,000 Hz sounds. The year after that, maybe some more in the 2,000 Hz range. Every 6 to 12 months, subtle changes are occurring in your inner ear's architecture. Your hearing loss pattern is evolving. If your hearing aid isn't adjusted to match these changes, you're constantly straining to hear. It's like wearing prescription glasses that are 2 years out of date. Technically, they still work. They're better than nothing. But they're not helping as much as they should. Your eyes, or in this case, your ears and brain, have to compensate for the mismatch. And that compensation takes energy. Mental energy. Cognitive resources that you could be using for memory, problem solving, and enjoying life. Now let's talk about those advanced features you're not using. Modern hearing aids use something called digital signal processing. The device has a tiny computer inside that analyzes incoming sound thousands of times per second. It can identify speech patterns versus background noise. It can detect when you're in a quiet room versus a noisy restaurant versus outdoors in windy conditions. And it adjusts its amplification strategy accordingly. But here's the catch. You have to tell the device which program to use, or you have to enable the automatic switching feature. Some hearing aids do this automatically, but many require you to manually switch programs using a button on the device or an app on your phone. If you don't know this feature exists, you're stuck in one-size-fits-all mode. You're in a loud, crowded restaurant, and your hearing aid is amplifying everything equally: the clanking dishes, the background music, the conversation 3 tables over, and the person sitting right in front of you trying to talk to you. It's overwhelming. It's exhausting. And you think, this stupid thing doesn't work. But it does work. You just need to switch to the restaurant mode, or noisy environment mode, which activates directional microphones that focus on the person in front of you and suppress sounds coming from behind and beside you. It's a game changer. But only if you know it exists. Same thing with Bluetooth. Many people don't realize their hearing aids can connect wirelessly to their smartphone, their TV, their computer. You can take phone calls and hear the person's voice directly in your ears, clearer than any phone speaker could ever deliver. You can watch TV at a normal volume instead of blasting it so loud your family complains. But if nobody ever showed you how to pair your devices, you're missing out on this entire dimension of functionality. Here's exactly what I want you to do. First, book an annual audiology appointment. Put it in your calendar right now. Treat it like you treat your annual physical with your primary care doctor or your dental cleaning. It's preventive maintenance for one of your most important senses. During that appointment, your audiologist will retest your hearing, compare it to previous tests, and adjust your device programming if necessary. But don't wait a full year if you're experiencing problems. If you're noticing that your hearing aid isn't working as well as it used to, if you're hearing more feedback, if voices sound muffled, if you're having trouble in certain environments, call your audiologist. Most offices offer free follow-up adjustments within the first year of purchase. Take advantage of that. Second, ask your audiologist to teach you every feature your device has. Sit down with them. Block out 30 minutes. Say, "Show me everything this device can do." Ask them to demonstrate how to switch programs. Ask about the Bluetooth features. Ask if there's an app for your smartphone and how to use it. Don't be embarrassed if you don't understand something the first time. Ask them to explain it again. Take notes if you need to. Then, when you get home, practice. Seriously, spend an afternoon just experimenting with your hearing aid. Switch between programs and notice how the sound changes. Go into a quiet room, then a noisy room, and see which program works best in each environment. If there's an app, download it and explore every menu and setting. Modern hearing aid apps let you adjust volume, change programs, adjust bass and treble, and even create custom settings for specific locations. Some apps will remember your preferences and automatically switch settings when you enter a saved location, like your favorite restaurant or your grandchild's house. The more you understand about your device, the more you'll use it. And the more you use it, the better your outcomes will be. Knowledge is power. And in this case, knowledge is also better hearing, better cognitive health, and a better quality of life. Now, everything I've told you so far, wearing your device consistently, cleaning it properly, getting a proper fitting, attending follow-ups, all of that matters. But here's the thing, mistake number 5 is the silent killer. It's the one that explains why so many seniors give up on their hearing aids entirely, even after doing everything else right. And most people never realize this mistake until it's too late. This is the breakthrough insight that could change everything for you. So stay with me, because what I'm about to share might be the most important thing you hear in this entire video. Now we've arrived at mistake number 5. And I need you to pay very close attention here, because this is the big one. This is the mistake that destroys more hearing aid journeys than all the other mistakes combined. This is why 40% of people who buy hearing aids end up with them sitting in a drawer, unused, gathering dust. And the tragic part, most people never realize this mistake until it's too late, until they've already given up and resigned themselves to a life of social isolation and cognitive decline. Here it is. Mistake number 5. You expected your hearing aid to restore perfect, natural hearing immediately. You thought you'd put that device in your ear, turn it on, and suddenly hear like you did 20 years ago. Crystal clear, effortless, natural. You expected to walk into a crowded restaurant and follow every conversation with ease. You expected to hear every word your spouse says from across the room. You expected birds chirping, grandchildren laughing, music playing, all sounding exactly the way you remember from before you lost your hearing. And when that didn't happen, when the first day with your hearing aid felt overwhelming and strange, when sounds felt too sharp, too loud, too metallic, when background noise seemed to attack you from all directions, when conversations still felt difficult and exhausting, you assumed the device was broken. Or worse, you assumed you'd been scammed. Sold an expensive piece of equipment that doesn't actually work. So you took it out. You put it in a drawer. And you told yourself, well, I tried. Hearing aids just don't work for me. But here's what nobody told you. Here's the truth that audiologists should explain on day one, but often don't. Because they assume you already know, or because they're too busy, or because they don't want to scare you off. This is supposed to happen. Let me share with you the devastating truth that nobody prepared you for. And I want you to really hear this. Hearing aids do not cure hearing loss. They don't. They can't. They're assistive devices, just like eyeglasses are assistive devices for your vision. They help. They improve your quality of life dramatically. But they don't restore your hearing to the way it was when you were 25 years old. That expectation, that hope, is what's setting you up for disappointment and failure. But here's the part that's even more important to understand. Your brain has spent years, maybe decades, adapting to reduced sound input. Think about what that means. When you first started losing your hearing, maybe 10 years ago, maybe 15, maybe 20, your brain didn't just sit there passively experiencing less sound. It adapted. It changed. It rewired itself. The auditory cortex, the part of your brain responsible for processing sound, started to shrink. Neural pathways that were once dedicated to hearing became reassigned to other tasks. Your brain learned to fill in the gaps, to make educated guesses about what people were saying based on context clues, LIP reading, and partial information. You developed coping mechanisms. You learned to nod and smile even when you didn't catch what someone said. You got used to a quieter world. And now, suddenly, you're flooding your brain with sound again. After years of sensory deprivation, you're turning on the fire hose. And your brain is overwhelmed. It doesn't know what to do with all this information. Every sound feels too loud because your brain forgot what normal volume is. Background noise feels intrusive because your brain lost the ability to filter out irrelevant sounds and focus on what matters. Your own voice sounds alien because you haven't heard yourself properly in years. That's not failure. That's biology. That's your brain trying to relearn a skill it lost. And here's the heartbreaking part. Because no one explained this to you, you gave up during the hardest part right before the breakthrough. Let me tell you what happens to people who give up at this stage. They put the hearing aid in the drawer and go back to their reduced hearing. And their brain continues to deteriorate. The auditory cortex continues to shrink. The risk of dementia climbs higher every year. Social isolation deepens because conversations are exhausting. Depression sets in. Falls and accidents increase because spatial awareness declines without auditory input. Balance problems develop. And quality of life plummets. All of it because of unrealistic expectations and a lack of information about what the adjustment period really involves. Now let me share with you the research that changes everything. This is the breakthrough insight that I wish every single person knew before they got their first hearing aid. Medical research shows that it takes the average person 4 to 6 weeks of consistent daily use before their brain fully adapts to amplified sound. 4 to 6 weeks. Not 4 to 6 days. Not a week or two. A full month to 6 weeks. And during that entire time, everything sounds off. Everything sounds weird, strange, unnatural. Your own voice sounds like you're talking in a barrel. Footsteps echo. The rustling of paper sounds like crashing cymbals. The hum of the refrigerator, which you haven't consciously heard in years, suddenly feels like it's drilling into your skull. Background conversations in restaurants feel like they're happening right next to your ear instead of across the room. This is called the acclimatization period, or the adaptation phase. And it's a real biological process happening in your brain. Your auditory cortex is literally rewiring itself. New neural connections are forming. Old pathways that shut down are being reactivated. Your brain is relearning how to process sound, how to distinguish between important sounds and background noise, how to focus your attention on one conversation in a crowded room. And here's the critical part, the part that explains why so many people fail. This process is not linear. It's not like you get 10% better each week for 6 weeks, and then you're done. It's more like you struggle and struggle and struggle, and then around week 3 or 4, something amazing happens. It's like a switch flips. Suddenly, the sounds that felt overwhelming start to feel normal. The background noise fades into the background where it belongs. Conversations become clearer. You stop thinking about the hearing aid every minute of the day. It becomes part of you. Audiologists call this the breakthrough moment, and research shows it happens for most people between weeks 3 and 5. But here's the devastating statistic: 40% of hearing aid users quit before they reach this point. They give up during week 2 or week 3, right when their brain is on the verge of that breakthrough. They're 1 or 2 weeks away from success, and they don't know it. Think about that. Think about how tragic that is. Imagine training for a marathon, running 25 miles, and then quitting 1 mile from the finish line because you're exhausted and you don't think you can make it. That's what's happening here. People are so close to the transformation, so close to the moment when everything clicks and their hearing aid becomes genuinely helpful, and they stop. Why? Because nobody told them this was coming. Nobody warned them that the first 3 weeks would be hard. Nobody explained that discomfort is part of the process, not a sign of failure. Let me give you another analogy that might make this even clearer. Imagine you've been living in complete darkness for years. Your eyes have adapted to the dark. You've learned to navigate by touch and memory. And then someone turns on the lights. Are you grateful for the light? Eventually, yes. But in that first moment, your eyes hurt. You squint. You shield your face. You might even feel angry at the person who turned on the lights, because now you're uncomfortable. That's what's happening with your hearing aid. Your ears and brain have adapted to darkness, to reduced sound. And now you're turning on the lights. Your brain needs time to adjust. It needs to remember how to handle all this sensory information. And yes, it's uncomfortable at first. But if you give it time, if you push through those first few weeks, the discomfort fades. And what's left is clarity, connection, the ability to engage with the world again. So here's what I need you to do. If you're new to hearing aids, or if you gave up in the past and you're thinking about trying again, I want you to make a commitment. Give yourself grace. Expect discomfort. Expect frustration. Don't expect perfection on day 1, or day 10, or even day 20. Expect a process. Expect ups and downs. But commit to 6 weeks of daily use before you judge whether the device is working. Put it on your calendar. Mark off each day. Journal your progress. Write down what sounds better each week, what's still difficult, how you're feeling. You'll be shocked at how much improves week by week when you actually track it. Because the improvements are gradual, you might not notice them day to day. But when you compare week 1 to week 4, the difference will be undeniable. And remember this: every day you wear your hearing aid, your brain gets stronger. Every hour of sound input is exercise for your auditory cortex. Every conversation you have is rebuilding neural pathways. You're not just learning to use a device, you're healing your brain. You're reversing years of decline. You're giving yourself the best possible chance at maintaining cognitive function, staying socially connected, and living independently for years to come. Don't give up during the hardest part. Don't quit 1 mile from the finish line. The breakthrough is coming. You just have to stay in the race long enough to reach it. So let me bring this all together for you. If you're watching this and thinking, "That's me, I've made these mistakes," I want you to know, it's not too late. Starting today, you can change the trajectory of your hearing health. Wear your device longer. Clean it daily. Get professional fittings and follow-ups. Learn your features. And most importantly, give your brain the time it needs to heal. Because this isn't just about hearing better. It's about staying connected to the people you love. It's about protecting your brain from cognitive decline. It's about independence, safety, and dignity. Your hearing aid is only as good as the habits you build around it. And now you have the tools to build the right ones. If this video helped you, do me a favor, share it with someone who's struggling with their hearing aid. Leave a comment below and tell me which mistake you're going to fix first. And if you want more health insights like this, subscribe and hit the bell. Your future self will thank you. Take care of your ears. They've carried you this far. Let's make sure they carry you home.